The horror film, The Tokoloshe, is set to send shivers across the globe. It's directed by Jerome Pequain with a script he co-wrote with novelist Richard Kunzman over a period of 10 years. The psychological horror has been selected for prestigious global film festivals, including the Busan International Fantastic Film Festival in South Korea and our very own Durban International Film Festival. Let's find out what this movie is about from producers Dumi, Gumbi and Cati, Weinek, who's joined us very early on a Saturday morning. Thank you so much for making the time. Let's start here. What made you decide, Dumi, creatively, that what you wanted to do within the film industry from a creative point of view was to make a horror film?
Well, I mean, if you had told me that at film school that I'd be making romantic comedies and horror films, I would have probably looked at you as if you had three heads. But I think, you know, I certainly didn't want to make a horror film. A colleague sent me the script. It was called something different then. I read it. I thought it was quite clever and smart. And as it always happens, I read something. If I think it's interesting, I then send it through to Cati, and then she read it as well. She kind of thought something was there. And we kind of then thought maybe we should actually embark on making this film.
And do you believe there's a market, Cati, for horror films or South African stories within the genre of horror to be told?
I think it's a wonderful way of telling our stories. It's a very entertaining format, and there's a huge market internationally for horror, and also there is a market in South Africa for that kind of storytelling. And at the end of the day, we're in the business of entertaining South Africans.
Now, Dumi, we've seen, obviously, there's a great need over the last 20 years of South Africa's democracy to use film as a platform to tell our stories, especially from with a heavy political background. Those stories do need to be told. But it must be quite welcoming that over the last few years, we've seen films like rom-coms being made, and indeed now, horror films being made. Is there a need for more of that kind of diversity in the types of South African stories that are being told in film?
I think we have to. I think... yeah, I think, you know, Cati will tell you that that's what we always say at the office, is like we need to tell more different types of films. And also, when you look at what's happened to the horror genre across the world, it's exploded. So we want to be part of that. You know, we're not making films for the sake of making films. We're making films because it's a viable business, and we want to prove that.
And your investors will want to see a return on that.
And investors want to see a return, because otherwise, you know, yes, government has done a great job over the last 10 years to sort of like support local filmmakers. But at some point, we need to start making films that make money, so that we're less reliant on what the government structures that are there. So like we want to make films that not only do well in South Africa, but it can also do well internationally. And I think the Tokoloshe is a start of that. You know, the movie is, we've got an international sales agent out of London. They're doing a good job in trying to sell the film. It was very strategic for us to actually have our world premiere, which was yesterday at the Busan Festival in South Korea, because that region in the world loves horror films. So we thought it was strategic that like the world premiere of this film should be in South Korea.
Now let's talk about this film specifically. You've basically decided to finally make a movie about South Africa's version of the boogeyman, isn't it? Tell us what this movie's about.
Well, I mean, there have been a couple of movies before this about the Tokoloshe, but essentially this is a story of a victim who overcomes her past and past monsters and is able to sort of move forward from there. And it just simply takes one of the great South African mythological figures and uses it to terrify us.
Now, I don't know if you agree with me. I'm not a huge fan of horrors. I can't even watch Harry Potter movies in the dark, is what my family always tells me. But I do understand there's a huge market for it. I'd like to think that a better horror movie is less blood and guts, which almost comes across as slapstick sometimes, if you ask me. What's more scary is a movie that puts a focus on terror and more of the thriller side of things. Where does this movie fit in?
I think you spot on. I think that this movie is not a slasher horror film. So
that's what it's called.
So yeah, so you don't see a lot of blood, a lot of guts and gore. It's sort of like more psychological. So like, you know, is what's happening in the film real or is it not real? Are some of the characters real? Are some of the characters not real? So I guess you'll have to watch the film to find out.
We were watching the trailer before we started the show, and I actually had to walk away. And yet it was such a simple trailer from a technique point of view. It was the little wind, there's sounds of trinkets in the tree, and then, for me, the scariest thing, the sounds of kids playing in the distance.
Yes. So like you can tell what kind of a film it is. It's more psychological than your typical sort of like slasher horror film. And I think, so that's our first teaser. So over the next couple of weeks, you'll see different teasers coming out into the marketplace.
Now, let's talk about the creative process. We just found out that, I mean, the script was written over 10 years, and then after that, it would land on your desk. Can you tell us more about that whole creative process?
Richard Kunzman and Jerome Pequano were friends, and started writing the script. And the initial intent was to do a B-grade horror, really. And then they realized that there was a lot of messaging and a lot of elements that they wanted to build into it. And so it became a more and more sophisticated storyline. And for two men to tell a story about a woman was also interesting. So by the time the script came to us, you know, it was quite a fully fleshed and strong storyline. We spent another year working with them on the script to get it production ready. And we were entirely entranced by Jerome Pequano's vision for the film. And as somebody who had done his time in the commercials industry, it was very exciting to be able to support a first-time director to bring this amazing visual world to life. So it's always about teamwork. It's not just always a single, you know, one person that puts it together or holds it together. It's always about an amazing team. And at the end of the day, it's our job to hold the team together and carry the film right through to the stage where the baby can walk on its own, you know.
The cast would have been key as well, I assume, Dumi.
Yeah, because I mean, the cast is key because the two lead characters almost needed to look similar. So that was quite challenging. So that was quite a long, drawn-out process. But, you know, casting is very critical to a successful film. You know, so you start with the script, and then once you have a really good script, it's a good foundation. And then the next thing is really finding the actors that can really play those characters. So like what Cati and I do is we really sort of like hammer out the casting process until we find the right people. And I think with these two young ladies and then the lady who plays their mother, you know, we kind of think like we did a good job in doing that.
Where was it filmed, and was it a completely local crew? And
it's local, everything is local. Proudly South African. Everything was shot here in Johannesburg, in a children's hospital, which has been mothballed.
Oh no! What are you telling me now?
Which has been mothballed. I think quite a few people. Well,
I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about that.
Certain strange things happen in that hospital, but it's no longer in use.
Even worse.
And yeah, so we shot it around Yeovil, and at the children's hospital, which is close to Empire Road. Yeah.
Oh, I live near there. Why are you telling me these details?
But like, yeah, everything with the film, from the writing to the actors, to the director, to the editing, to the beautiful sound that creeped you out, all local. So like, yeah, we're very excited about that.
Now, you spoke earlier about the great platform that strategically you got to show this film at the BFAN, did I say that correctly? The BFAN International Fantastic Film Festival in South Korea. What is it about Asian countries and their obsession for horror movies? They are experts in the field. When I was preparing for this interview, I remembered movies like The Grudge and The Ring. Those were first Japanese stories and Japanese films that were made by Hollywood eventually. What is it about it?
I think what is a great lesson for us to learn as South African filmmakers is that our stories are right here in front of us. And what the South Koreans have perfected is to use the cultural universe and storytelling, whether it's fairy tales, mythology, to then tell their stories. And they've managed to put them into a modern context, and they're not shy to show off their culture. And I think that's a lesson for us to learn, is to say, we've got the stories here, we don't have to go and find them somewhere else. let's just do it.
We have to wrap it up, unfortunately. Viewers will want to know, when will they be able to see this movie?
So the movie premieres in South Africa on the 19th of July at the Durban International Film Festival. It's actually the opening night film, which is quite a big thing.
That's exciting.
It's a big thing in the film industry to have an opening night film. So we're quite excited about that. And then on Halloween itself, we'll have the premiere of the film.
And that's October,
locally.
is it not?
October 31st.
Okay.
We'll have the premiere itself here in Johannesburg, and then on the 2nd of November, the film goes out not only in South Africa, but also in the UK at the same time. And then also it might be opening in some of the Southeast Asia markets on the same day as on the 2nd of November.
And I know the big talking point with South African films as well is that it is seen in enough cinemas for South Africans to be able to go and see that. Is that being taken care of as well?
Yes, the movie is going to be released across the country so people can watch it where they live. Yeah.
Fantastic news. We wish you all the best. I can't promise I'll be the first to watch it. I'll maybe go to a morning show while the light is, the sun is shining.
We'll invite you to the premiere.
I won't keep you to that. We'll leave it there for now. Dumi, Gumbi and Cati, Weinek, co-producers of the horror film, The Tokoloshe, will be